All right, it looks like it's right about that time. So I certainly want to welcome everyone here to Tusculum University. It's great seeing that we have numerous students here, as well as several from the community. And so I know I have been looking forward to hearing from Dr. Garfinkel for at least since this past June, when we were with a group that went to Israel. And the last day that we were there, we stopped at Lachish because it's one of the best sites in Israel to be able to see. And Dr. Garfinkel was there with his excavation team and was incredibly gracious to us and spoke to us and to our group about Lachish. And that then created the opportunity for us to talk about students being able to come to excavate at Tel Lachish. And so as a result, we're going to be going back to Israel this summer. And whether you are a student at Tusculum or not a student at Tusculum, you are welcome to join us as we go back to Israel. I have some information down here if you're interested in traveling with us. And we will be there June 22nd through and come back July 2nd, and timing it so that those that want to be able to stay and excavate will finish the trip, and then they are able to start the excavation, which is just really an incredible opportunity. And it is also, I think, an incredible honor to have Dr. Yossi Garfinkel here, an esteemed professor at the Hebrew University. He is the Yigal Yadin Professor of Archaeology of the Land of Israel at the Institute of Archaeology at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. I had a wonderful opportunity to spend some time with him yesterday and to learn even more about him and his interests. And the first part of his career, he really specialized in kind of a late prehistory of the Levant, dealing primarily with kind of the pottery of the Neolithic and Chalcolithic periods. Since 2007, he has concentrated his research on kind of the early and heavily debated phases of the Kingdom of Judah in the 10th and 9th centuries BCE. And he conducted excavations and surveys at numerous sites, including Tel Lachish. And because of his research and excavations, new data on the early kings of the kingdom, David, Solomon, and Rehoboam, have been uncovered. It was fascinating as we had an opportunity to have dinner with him last night and hearing about some of the newest finds. One of the best things about archaeology is this is what's giving us new information. And so history is history, but our understanding of history and the new sources that reveal that history are often coming to us from archaeology. So it's incredibly stimulating and exciting field. And so just very much looking forward to hearing from Dr. Garfinkel in just a few moments. But I do want to reiterate that Dr. Garfinkel was very gracious to provide 2 books to the library, but then also 2 books to me. So so I don't have to check these out of the library. The library already has their own copies, and so these are mine. Okay. If you want to read one of these copies of the books, you have to go to the library. Okay. But they're there and they're being cataloged, and so just these are now have gone to the top of my reading list, and I very much look forward to reading these books. And so Dr. Garfinkel, I believe, has published 12 books and over 100 articles, and so incredibly prolific in his scholarship. And so if you're wanting to have an opportunity to not just read about the Bible and about its history, which in and of itself is obviously fascinating, but there's nothing quite like the opportunity to be there and to be able to see the landscape and the geography and to be at the places where these biblical events and these historical events occurred. And it does give you a greater sense of connection to the past and to the people of the past. And so I encourage you to come with us. We have information there if you're wanting to stay for the excavation, my understanding is you have kind of two opportunities. People can actually participate. It has to be a week at a time, and you can just participate, but not for credit. But if you want to stay and get credit, then you have to be there for 3 weeks, be a part of that full experience, and some academic requirements is that are part of that, but excavating for 3 weeks, and then you apply. And if you've done a good job, and Dr. Garfinkel will, with the Hebrew University, allow you to get 3 hours of credit from the Hebrew University that can then be transferred back to Tusculum or another university. So incredible opportunities to not only go to Israel, but to be able to excavate at Lachish. So if you're interested, we have some information down here, but also if you're interested, you can email me at president@tusculum.edu. So pretty easy, president@tusculum.edu. I'll be more than happy to provide additional information. But as I turned it over to Dr. Garfinkel, not only is the archaeology and the excavation itself fascinating, but Lachish is a particularly important site. It's mentioned numerous times in the Old Testament in some major events. It's mentioned in Joshua's conquest. It's mentioned in the conquest by the Assyrians in 701, as well as when the Babylonians take it. So it's an incredibly important site, not only historically and biblically, but also for understanding the modern development of archaeology. So it's an incredible site. And so we are very honored to have Dr. Garfinkel here with us and to present to us. And so if you will join me in welcoming Dr. Garfinkel to Tusculum University.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and to see so many people that has interest in what I'm doing. So thank you for attending the lecture. As you can see from the title, I will talk about the Canaanite and Judean cities of Lachish, and I will emphasize specifically why we are excavating in Lachish. So I want you to understand also the process, not just the final results of the excavations. So first of all, where are we? You can see here the Near East with Turkey, Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, and we are in Israel. Israel is so small that it can really not even possible to place it on the big map of the end of the Near East. And Lachish is, you can see, the southern part of Israel between Jerusalem and Beersheba. And why people all over the world has interest in the archaeology of this small region? There is only two reasons: the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now specifically about Lachish. Lachish was a Canaanite city-state in the Middle Bronze Age. It's flourished from about 1800 BC to 1550 BC. And then we have the Late Bronze Age, 1550 to about 1150 BC. Letters from the kings of Lachish were found in the Amarna archive in Egypt, and the Canaanite city is mentioned in the book of Joshua. So not only the Ironite city, the city of the kingdom of Judah, but also the Canaanite city is mentioned in a number of historical sources. Lachish was excavated before us by a number of expeditions in the 1930s, in the 1960s, and the 70s and 80s. My excavation, we were the fourth expedition to Lachish, and it has been conducted with myself and also professors Michael Hazel and Martin Kleinbeil from Southern Adventist University, not far away from here. So you see, Tennessee is already involved with the excavation of Lachish. When you look at the site of Lachish, it has a rather geometric shape, and this shape is not natural. The landscape has been manipulated in the Late Bronze Age, and the site got this geometric shape by constructing massive stone walls around the site and massive fillings that changed the original landscape and created this type of square shape city. Besides this, very little is known about the Middle Bronze city. Also, so many expeditions excavated in the site, but nobody went deep enough to excavate the Middle Bronze city. People started with level 1, which is Persian, and then level 2, 3, 4, 5 from the time of the king of Judah. Then level 6, 7, 8, they are Canaanite, and people need to continue, keep on going down and down. So after so many years, I don't think that more than 5% of the site has been excavated. So still a huge amount of work to do at Lachish. Here you can see most of the information on the Middle Bronze. Some people also call it the time of the patriarchs, the Middle Bronze. We know it from graves, because the graves are around the city and they are not covered by meters and meters of later periods. So it was easy, and I think 20, 30 or 40 graves from the Middle Bronze has been uncovered with human skeletons, but also with pottery and metal objects and other interesting objects that have been found in the graves. In our excavation, we found a citadel on the edge of the site that overlooking the main route in the region. And in this fortress, it came to an end by fierce destruction. We found a lot of Egyptian scarabs. You can see here 4 different Egyptian scarabs. We discovered about 30 impressions of such scarabs, and we also discovered bone inlays. So this was a rich context for the Middle Bronze. Now I'm moving to the Late Bronze city. This city is better known from archaeology and also from historical sources. We have about 5 letters that were sent from the king of Lachish to the pharaoh in Egypt. And you can see here an example of such letters. These letters were written in Akkadian. And think about it, the local people, the Canaanites, they spoke Canaanite, which is a kind of ancient Hebrew. The Egyptians, they were talking in Egyptian and written in hieroglyphs. But what was the international language? Akkadian. So there were scribes specializing in Akkadian in Canaan, in the Canaanite cities, and they sent letters to Egypt, and there were probably in Egypt some scribes who were specializing in reading and writing Akkadian. So it's interesting to see that there are 3 different languages, but the international language was Akkadian. Okay, the Late Bronze city has a lot of connections with overseas places. We have here pottery from Mycenae in Greece. We can see here pottery from Cyprus and also from other places of the ancient Near East. So it was a flourishing city with commercial activities all over the Near East. And in this city, in the Canaanite city, 3 temples were found. One of them, the earliest one, is called the Phos Temple. It was not on the site, it was found outside the site near the cemeteries, very rich with objects and extremely important, but I will not go into all these details now. And we also excavated the temple. Our expedition, the Northeast Temple was excavated, as you can see, 2014 to 2016. In this temple, we discovered the figurines of Baal, the Canaanite god Baal, smiting god figurines, 2 of them you can see here. We also have an amulet of a goddess. The faraway was not found by us, it was found in another temple that I'm not mentioning here, but you can see a Canaanite goddess standing on top of a horse, Lady Godiva, some people like to call her. And here is an amazing artifact that was found in our temple. It was found in the Holy of Holies. This object, what is it? It's about 12 centimeters. It's made from bronze and covered with silver. And there are dots and circles and lines on it. And the clue or the solution is the figurines that you see over there. That figurine was found in Megiddo. Okay, Oriental Institute of Chicago excavated Megiddo in the 1920s and 1930s, and they found this figurine, a sitting god, a sitting Canaanite god. And what's this god holding in his hand? A scepter. Now the Canaanite, the statue is about 30 centimeters, and the scepter, the miniature scepter, is only 2 centimeters. We have a life-size scepter, which is 12 centimeters, 6 times bigger. So if the figurine is 30 centimeters, I believe that there was a god, a statue of a god, which was 1.80 meters. Life-size Canaanite statue was sitting in the Holy of Holies, holding a scepter like this in his hand. And if you think about Moses doing all the miracle in the desert, how Moses doing the miracles. He's not talking, he's not making spell, he's not what he's doing. He has a scepter, the scepter of God. This is the power of Moses. He had a scepter of God. And this was an object like this. We discovered in this Canaanite temple various metal objects, including gold. You can see here gold earrings and other gold objects, and two large craters. You can see them here in the photograph. Some weapons and also an inscription. This is an alphabetic inscription, and you see it's broken. We don't have the beginning, we don't have the end, and it's very hard to understand what is written here. Basically, it's only letters. So the contribution of this, an inscription like this, and other inscriptions that we can learn about the shape of the early alphabet. But we don't have sentences. Oh, sorry. But here comes the big surprise. Near me is a dagger with 4 letters. It was found in Lachish from the Middle Bronze era. And over there, you can see an ivory comb. This is an ivory comb. It's only 3 centimeters, an inch and few more, a bit bigger than an inch. On it, there are 17 letters. 17 letters were engraved on this ivory. The ivory was found, by the way, in Lachish, in the area excavated by Southern Adventist University, Professor Michael Hazel and Professor Martin Kleinbeck. Now, what is the letters are so archaic, really. It's the first alphabet that we knew from Sarabit el-Khadem and other places in Israel and in Sinai. But all these inscriptions, you can have maybe 1 letter, 2 letters, 1 word, two words. This is the first sentence ever found in alphabet. So I cannot exaggerate how important it is. And what is written there, I can read you here in Canaanite. I don't know Canaanite, but it's very similar to Hebrew. It was really archaic Hebrew. And it's written, Itash, Chat, Zi, Lekamal, Se'ar, V'zakat. Now, what is the meaning of this? May this task, the ivory task, the comb, may this comb, but they don't say comb, they say task, ivory task. May this task root out lice from hair and beard. This is the earliest sentence we have in alphabet. Okay, it's not a royal inscription. It's not some a god, writing about his victories. It's not a love song. It's a very practical. You have an object, and on the object, you have a wish that this object will fulfill what it can do. So it's amazing that you have an inscription on an object telling you about the function of the object. Okay, and you can see that this is so far the oldest sentence we have in alphabet. And then the Canaanite city has been destroyed about 1150, maybe by the people of Israel. Some people say that maybe the Sea people, the Philistines destroyed Canaanite Lachish, maybe the Egyptians, all kinds of theories. So far, we don't have any clear evidence from archaeology who destroyed Lachish. Maybe it will be found in the future, but till today, we don't have a clear archaeological data who make this destruction. Okay, we are closing to the topic of our specific lecture. You can see here the stratigraphy. What is stratigraphy? The levels. When you have a site that was built again and again and again and again, each level create another, each city create another level at the site. And in the Lachish, for example, the first level is from the Persian period. This is level 1. Under it, we have level 2. Level 2 has been destroyed by the Babylonian in 586 BC. Under it, we have level 3. Level 3 has been destroyed by the Babylonian, the Sennacherib campaign at 701 BC. So far, this is clear. There are no debate about level 1, 2, and 3. The big debate in archaeology is about level 4 and 5. And you can see here level 4 is from the Iron Age, and I wrote 9 or 8th century BC question mark, because this is under debate. And further down, level 5, the first Iron Age level at Lachish, And there is debate about when it was built, the 10th century, the 9th century, or the 8th century. And it's also a debate about the character of this level, if it was a village or a city. Then we have a gap, about 200 years gap, and we are entering level 6, Canaanite, level 7, Canaanite, level 8, Canaanite, late bronze, and further down is middle bronze. And if people will excavate further down, I'm sure that they will also find early bronze city in Lachish, because we have early bronze graves in the cemeteries around the city. But nobody so far went deep enough in the mound to find the earlier or the earliest city. And here, when we are dealing with level 5, we are we are entering the big debate about how much history has been preserved in the Hebrew Bible. I know that religion people will have no problem in accepting the text as historical memories, but from scientific point of view, people raising questions about these traditions. For thousands of years, the biblical tradition has been accepted as representing accurate historical memories. This was the dominant view of the founded fathers of the archaeology and historical research of ancient Israel. You can see here Professor Albright, the leading scholar in the field, Benjamin Mazar, Yigal Yadin, all of them accepted the biblical tradition as representing historical memories. But since the 1980s, so it's about 40 years ago, a deconstructionist and minimalist movement began to develop in biblical and archaeological studies. This is part of a much bigger changes in humanities, social sciences, and so on. And then these people or this school said something like the Bible was written only in the Hellenistic period. That will be the second century BC. So it's hundreds of years after the events he described. David and Solomon are mythological figures. And Judah was not a kingdom in the 10th, 9th, or 8th century BC. Now, how can you prove that David existed? Think about it. Can you prove something like this? But can you prove that David didn't exist? So you can see here the big problems that such an approach putting in face or we need to deal with. And here I will show you, for example, some books. They were very strong movement 10, 20, 30 years ago. There were many books. I will give you only 4 as an example. Can a history of Israel, you see history in bracket, be written? And then you see Israel history and the history of Israel, which means Israel history is the biblical tradition. That's the history that Israel tells about itself or told about itself, but what is the real history? And you can see here Moses taking water out of the rock, which means that everything is a legend. And here you can see the biblical saga of King David. King David is only a mythological figure. And then the last book in this case is the mythic past. Everything is mythical stories. Nothing really happened. So what can archaeology tell us about the kingdom of Judah? This is the main question I'm asking. And here you can say, okay, go to Jerusalem and excavate. Everything took place in Jerusalem. But Jerusalem is a very problematic archaeological site. And Lachish is really the site which enabled us to do archaeological research about the kingdom of Judah. Jerusalem, as I said, is a complicated archaeological site for many reasons. I can sit here, I can stand here and talk only about the difficulties of making archaeological research in Jerusalem. And this is basically because we still have a modern city sitting on top of the ancient remains, so we cannot excavate in most of the area. It's not possible to excavate. And then we have another big problem, which called Herod the Great. When Herod built his temple and other monument, he simply destroyed everything and built on bedrock. So he destroyed a lot of the archaeological record of Jerusalem, and that's why Jerusalem cannot give us good picture of what was going on. And there's another aspect in Jerusalem that since it was established as a capital city by David, it continues peacefully till the final destruction of the Babylonian. But in Lachish, we have also Assyrian destruction and other activities. So Lachish is a better seismograph to study the history of the kingdom of Judah. I will give you here two examples. You have in Jerusalem what is called the stepstone structure, and on top of it is a large stone structure, and they were dubbed like Palace of David. Another part near the western wall, you have this beautiful wall and some towers, and these were called Solomon's city wall. But how do you know that it belonged to David? How do you know that it was built by Solomon? So people take the biblical text to talk about David palace or Solomon city wall, and then they take archaeological features and glue the biblical tradition into archaeology. But how do you know that this is right? This is not the right way because it's circular argument. And the question how to do research which will be independent. This is the main problem in our case. So is David a mythological figure? Indeed, like many people or many scholars from the minimalist school try to advocate. And here the answer came in 1992 from Tel Dan, a site in northern Israel. And in these excavations, they found fragments, as you can see, not a complete inscription, but fragment from Aramaic stela. And we don't know, it was probably written by Hazael, but his name is not appearing here because we don't have the top part of the inscription. But this guy said that I killed 70 kings. I killed a king from Israel and a king from the house of David. And if you remember in the Yehu revolt, the Bible tells you that two kings were killed, the king of Israel and the king of Judah in the same event. So the same event is documented in the biblical text and also in this Aramaic stela. And here we have the word David, you can see here in circle, Bet David, house of David, which means that it's dynasty created by David. This stela tells us that David was indeed a historical figure and he was a founded father of a dynasty. And because it said Israel and Bet David, it means Israel and Judah. But why the stela don't say Judah? Why it said house of David? I don't know. But if it would say Israel and Judah, we wouldn't know about David. So maybe it was important to write David so we know that David is indeed a historical figure. Okay, so we know that David existed, but what do we know about David? In Jerusalem, there were no remains, not elsewhere. So people said, okay, David was a founded father, but he was just a Bedouin sheikh living in a tent. And here you can see a site of Khirbet Kayafa, a site that I excavated in the Judean Shvela, about 1 day walk from Jerusalem. And this is a fortified city that you can see here, a beautiful aerial photograph of it. Here you can see the plan of the city. I will not talk much about Khirbet Kayafa, but I want you to understand the process, why we are working in Lachish and what is the question that we are asking. So this was a rather small site, 2.3 hectares. Jerusalem was 6 hectares at the time. Lachish is 7.5 hectares and so on. So it's not one of the biggest sites that we have and not one of the biggest cities, but it has two gate piazzas, Kazmat city wall, belt of houses built around the city. We have public building like a palace in the center of the site. We have evidence for administration, inscription, and also imported objects that came from Cyprus and from Egypt. You can see here the massive fortifications. Nobody can argue that the site was not fortified. And radiocarbon dating, okay, we sent in the beginning 10 samples and now we have nearly 30 samples. The dating of this city is 1000 BC. This is the time of David. This was a major revolution. Once we have this result, we have a full page in the New York Times and National Geographic, BBC, and CNN, and really we got a lot of PR all during the years that we were excavating in Khirbet Kayafa. And some people ask me, who makes such a wonderful PR for you? I said, King David. Here you can see two inscriptions which were found in Khirbet Kayafa. And I can talk about them again forever, but I will not talk about them. I only want to say that why they are so important. This is evidence that writing was known in Judah in the time of David. So it was possible to document historical events and to transfer them from generation to generation. Even one inscription was not known from this time before our excavations. We found two, and two more were found in other sites nearby, in Bet Shemesh and even in Jerusalem. So today we have 4 inscriptions from the 10th century BC in Judah. And then I went to another site which is called Khirbet El Rai, and this evening I'm giving a lecture at Southern Adventist dedicated only to this site. But why I mention it? Because in this site there is also a level from the time of King David. It was when we started the project, we hoped to find another city like Khirbet Kayafa, but it turned out to be only a village. So we have a village and a city from the time of David. The site is extremely rich with pottery. You can see here an example of some of the objects uncovered in the excavations. So if you take all this data together, what can we say about the historical King David from archaeological point of view? We can talk about urbanization. Khirbet Kayafa is an urbanized city. We have, I didn't talk about it, but Khirbet Kayafa is a well-planned city. You can see that Khirbet Arai and Khirbet Kayafa are sitting on the border between Judah and Philistia, and where we have main routes leading into Judah. So they really have fortified defined borders. We have administration, we have writing. We also have new cult, but again, it's not for this lecture. So David, we know something from in archaeology from the time of David. So who is next? Solomon. And Solomon is portrayed in the biblical tradition as a builder king. He built a palace and a temple in Jerusalem, royal architecture. So did Solomon build a royal palace and a temple in Jerusalem? Does the biblical tradition give accurate information about these activities? You know, it's not possible to excavate the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. You have the Muslim mosque, and it's a holy place, and nobody will let you to go excavate inside it. And indeed, you can see here a book published in 2012, Palace and Temple, a study of architectural and verbal icons, which means that there was no temple and no palace, it's only icons. I don't know what is verbal icons really, but the idea is you can understand it's part of the minimalist movement, that it's all legend, and such royal architecture never took in Jerusalem in the early or in the middle of the 10th century BC. Here you can, and this is really a revolution. Till a few days ago, I believe that this is the most important object I ever found in my excavations. Now I think that the ivory with the earliest alphabet inscription is probably equal or maybe even more important. But what do you really see here? This is a box, a stone box, 30 centimeter tall, 20 centimeter wide. And it's carved as an architectural building. You can see that near the roof, you have some rectangular divided into three, what is marked by number 1. We have 7 of them near the roof. And if you look at the door is decorated with recess frame. The outer recess is wider, and slowly, this goes inside. We published 2 books about this motive. One book is, and why? Because when you read the biblical text about Solomon Palace and Solomon Temple, these 2 architectural features appeared in the biblical description of Solomon Palace and Solomon Temple. Now, this object came from the ground. It came from Khirbet Kayafa. The dating is 1000 BC. This is not architectural. This is not a verbal icon. This is a miniature depiction of a royal architecture that was known in Judah in the 10th century BC. And in the biblical text, these features are appearing in the biblical text. We wrote an important article about it, and then we also wrote a popular book. This is a popular book that we wrote about it. What you see near the roof is called the term in classical archaeology is triglyphs. This is really imitation. When you have a roof, you need to support the roof so it will not collapse into the rooms. And how you support it? By beams. Wooden beams that going from one side of the building to the other side, from one wall to the other wall of the room, and on top of these beams, you lay the roof. So you can, they are organized here, 3 together, 3 together, 3 together. And this is called triglyph in archaeology. So triglyph and recess frame are known in the biblical description of Solomon Palace and Temple. Okay, and this object didn't come from Cyprus or Egypt or Mesopotamia. It came from Judah, from Khirbet Kayafa, one day walk from Jerusalem. So we have evidence for royal architecture in Jerusalem in the 10th century BC. Okay, so I show you that we excavated something about David, something about Solomon, and who is next? Rehoboam. So we are looking for Rehoboam. This is why we are in Lachish. But why Lachish? Okay, a biblical tradition informs that Rehoboam fortified Lachish. It's written in 2 Chronicles 11, 5 to 11. Now, 2 Chronicles is a bit later book, probably composed in the Persian period, so people don't think that its historical value is as important or as accurate as the books of Kings. But nevertheless, you can see that it's telling us that Rehoboam dwelled in Jerusalem and he built cities for defense in Judah. He built Bethlehem, Eitam, Tekoa, Bet Sur, Socho, Adulam, Gat, Marisha, Ziph, Aduraim, Lachish, Azekah, Tzoah, Ayalon, and Hebron. Okay, so who built, do we have a fortified city in Lachish from the time of Rehoboam? This is the archaeological question. Okay, and this is the reason that we went to Lachish. You can see here, I show you this before, but you can see again, we have the Canaanite cities, level 6 has been destroyed sometime in the 12th century BC. Then we have a settlement gap in Lachish, and then level 5 was built. And this is the big debate. When level 5 was built, the 10th century, the 9th century, or the 8th century? And if this city is a village or a city. And you can see how, that we are testing here. We have a biblical tradition, we have an archaeological site, and we are testing here what's happened. So 2013, 2017, we excavated. We is Hebrew University together with Southern Adventist University from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And one of the excavators is even sitting here in the audience. It came and excavated with us season after season. So this is a great pleasure to see volunteers here in the audience. So we excavated 5 years at Lachish in order to study the history of the site fortifications. We want to know about the fortification, but we also want to know something about what's happened inside the city. And you can see here aerial view of Tel Lachish, and you can see the slopes. And on the slope, we opened one of the areas of the excavation was on the slope in order to study the fortifications, the sequence of fortification of Lachish, and we try to understand, to date each one of these phases. And you can see here the sequence. Level 1, the first level that you excavate, level 1, and this was a stone wall about 2.5 meters wide. And it was known before in other, it was exposed by by 2 of the earlier expeditions that excavated in the site. And under it, we have level 2. It's also a stone wall. It's about 3.5 meters wide. And this is the level destroyed by the Babylonian, by Nebuchadnezzar in the end of the first temple period. And as we go down, we found another city wall, the city wall of level 4 and 3. And this is a mud brick city wall, 6 meters wide, built from mud bricks. And this is the city destroyed by Sennacherib at 701 BC. And then the big surprise was a new city, not new, but it was a new discovered city wall, level 5. The other expedition didn't find any city wall, and we were the first one to uncover this city wall. You can see it here, level 5, okay? A new city wall which was not known before. And under it, we have level 6, the last Canaanite city. So our city wall is in a sandwich. We have level 3 and 4 above it. We have level 6 under it. So it must be level 5. It cannot be from any other period. Here you can see even a close-up of the city wall with even a small opening to drain water and sewage out of the city. And then we have building abutting the city wall from inside the city. You can see the pillars and walls that abutting the city wall. The problem is that in this specific location, the city wall has been eroded quite a lot and the connection was not very good. And we were criticized, people criticized us and said, but the connection of the houses and the city wall is not good enough. So what we are doing, we came back to Lachish. This summer, after we have 5 seasons excavation in Lachish, we finished in 2017. And now in 2022, we came back to Lachish and we would like to excavate here a few more seasons. And if you are asking yourself, if I will come as a volunteer to Lachish, what will I do? You will excavate Rehoboam fortifications. Maybe it's not as exotic as David, But we are building, you have a tradition, and you need to, we have something about David, something about Solomon. So now it's time to understand more about Rehoboam and to have the whole sequence of the early kings from of the Judean kingdom. So there were debates about the connection between the city wall to the houses. And in 2022, that's this in July, we came back to Lachish to enlarge the exposure of the city wall and the building. This is an aerial photograph of the area at the end of the season. It was a short 3-week season. You can see the black line. This is the line of the city wall. It has been eroded toward my direction. It's already eroded because it's near the slope, but it's continued further, and 10 meters more, we have the city wall that I showed you before. The nice city wall that I showed you in the aerial photograph is located 10 meters further to the west. And what we are doing, we started here, and we will continue 10 more meters to the west, and we will combine the new area and the old area together, and then we have the city wall exposed to nearly 80 meters. And about the houses, you can see in the excavation square walls running in the city wall is running from east to west, and the houses running from north to south. They're perpendicular to the city wall. And what we are going to do this summer, we will continue the excavation further to the north. Okay, in this square, we'll excavate up to here and find the city wall. In this square, we'll continue over here. In this area, we'll continue over here. In this area, over here. In this area, over here. And here we have 10 more meters to connect with the old city wall that has already been excavated. You need patience in archaeology. You know, it's not something that you do in 5 minutes and you finish. This, we excavated 5 years in the past. We have 5 years a break. Now we came back. So altogether, it's taking time, but this is the way to build data. It's very easy to write, there was no David. You just sit in you can write an article 3 days, you know, that there was no David. But if you want to prove that there was David, you need to work 10 years to find data. So this is what we are doing. And by the way, I show you the list of Rehoboam fortifications. So in the literature, you can see some opinions. Some scholars say that, no, this list is not from the time of Rehoboam. It's from the time of Hezekiah. And another scholar wrote an article that this list is from the time of Josiah. And another scholar wrote that this list is from the time of Yochanan Horkanus, one of the Hashmonaim. So you see people taking a biblical list and move it 200 years, 300 years, 700 years. But what kind of methodology is it? How do you know that the list is not authentic? And if it's not authentic, how do you know that it's this king or that king? So this is just scholarship on air. Scholarship with no data. Theories and theories and theories. Okay, it's very easy to build a theory. I also build theories from time to time. Okay, but at least I build my theories on data. Not on the lack of data, and not on imagination. And this is one of the things that happens, that you don't need anything but imagination. So this is what we are now doing. It will take maybe 2 or 3 seasons to excavate the further to the north to connect what we already have into the city wall, and then maybe also to enlarge inside the site and excavate the rest of the building. And I show you this beautiful ivory comb and other inscription and the gold object and so on. But we are not treasure hunting. Okay? When we are going to a site, it's not to find inscription or to find gold. We need to have research questions. We need to have questions. We need to have questions that can be verified. Yes or no. Not just a question, what are the Canaanites? So everything that you find will answer you something about the Canaanite. I think that the questions that archaeology is asking when it's going to a site should be a very narrow question. A question that can be really answered by yes or no, and not just something general. And this is the way we are working. You need to, the way I understand archaeology as a science is when you have research question and you have a way to test them. Here is a plan of what has been found, the city wall that you see over there with houses 1, 2, 3, and 4. Part of it was found already in 2017. And here you can see the rest of the building, 4, 5, 6 is what we already did this summer. And I'm sure that by the end of next summer, the city wall will be exposed all the way to where I'm standing. And if we are lucky, we will also manage to connect it with the city wall I already showed you. If not, we'll need another season to do it. Now, what is the dating of all this? I show you a new city wall, I show you structure, but what is the dated of them? If I was an old school biblical scholar, I would say Rehoboam. Why? Because it's written in the Bible that Rehoboam fortified Lachish. But then I will date the fortification by the Bible, and then the fortification will prove the Bible. But this will be circular argument. So what is the dating? Okay, the dating had to be independently from any historical or biblical tradition. And what we did here, like in Khirbet Kayafa, we sent sample for radiocarbon dating. Okay, radiocarbon dating, checking the proportion of carbon 14 and carbon 12 isotope. Carbon 14 is radioactive, and it's every 5,700 years, you'll have only half the quantity, and then quarter of the quantity, and then 1/8, and it's decay over time. So it created a kind of clock, a chronological clock, and by measuring the radiocarbon proportion of the isotope, you can get information about the dating. And you can see here the dating of the levels that I show you, the houses that are abutting the city wall. We have this sample, and there are 6, 7 more samples still under processed now, or under processing at Oxford University. So we don't have all the sample yet, but we have a nice sample, nearly 15 dates by now, and you can see that they are around 900 BC. I compare here Khirbet Kayafa radiocarbon dating and Lachish radiocarbon dating. And you can see here that the dating of Kayafa were around 1000 BC, which is the time of David. And you can see here that the radiocarbon dating of Lachish are a bit before, a bit after, but they are around 900 BC. Okay, so it's very clear that Kayafa is early by nearly 100 years or by 80 years than the date of level 5 at Lachish. And this is the way we are working. We are trying to build data independently from historical sources and from biblical traditions, and then to compare and see. And in my case, in my case, all the archaeological data of David, Solomon, and Rehoboam fit with the biblical tradition. But it's not based on the biblical tradition. And you can see how we are working. This is the method of breaking all these vicious circular arguments. So you can see that Lachish 5 was indeed fortified at the time of Rehoboam, and this city list has been preserved in the biblical tradition in its historical, in the right historical context. Okay, now we can move on. Level 5, level 4, we don't have too much to say about it, but level 3 is a quite interesting level at Lachish. This is the level destroyed by Sennacherib. Okay, the level is at Judah was a rather flourishing kingdom in the 8th century BC, and then Hezekiah decided to revolt against the Assyrian, which ruled the area, and Judah had to pay them tax every year. So Hezekiah saw that he knew better and decided not to pay tax. And then Sennacherib came and destroyed large part of Judah. And the siege over Lachish is well documented in the relief that was now, today it's in the British Museum. But this relief was excavated in 1847 by Austin Henry Layard, one of the first archaeologists in the ancient Near East. He came to Nineveh, conducted excavations there, and found the palace of Sennacherib. And in the palace, he found the relief which showed the siege over Lachish. And we also have inscription on the relief, which says that Sennacherib, king of the world, sitting on his throne, and the booty of Lachish presented before him. So we have Lachish on the relief, which is amazing. Now we also have the account of Sennacherib. You have the relief, which is a pictorial representation, but you also have text that describe the event. Then we have the biblical text that describe the Assyrian campaign, and then we have the site of Lachish. And the Assyrian siege ramp has been excavated at Lachish. We don't have too many examples from the ancient Near East where we have 4 different types of data: the relief, the Assyrian document, the biblical text, and the site itself. It's an amazing point of where all these things are combined together. And this is Lachish again. So you see how important is Lachish for the history, not only of Israel and biblical tradition, but to the entire Near East. Okay, so we have the Sennacherib siege ramp at Lachish. It was excavated in the past, but nobody ever thought about how it was built. And last year we published this article in Oxford Journal of Archaeology, and it is about constructing the Assyrian siege ramp at Lachish, how it was built. We calculated, according to the volumes, that you need about 3 million stones to construct the Assyrian ramp. So you can say, well, it took forever. No, they could do it in 3 weeks if they were working day and night. And how do we know that they were working day and night? Isaiah said about the Assyrians, they are not sleeping, they are not dorsies, they are working day and night. But when are they working day and night? When they are marching from Assyria to Judah, they had to sleep overnight. So where are they working in shifts? Probably on the Assyrian siege ramp, when they built it and they are short in time. So there are many aspects about how they move the sediment, how they, and I will not go into it, it's a lecture for itself, but it was a fascinating research to reconstruct how the Assyrian siege ramp at Lachish was built by the Assyrian. And the last thing I will talk about is level 2 at Lachish. This is the last level from in the kingdom of Judah, and this is the level destroyed by the Babylonian. And one of the most important discovery made, or some of the most important discoveries made in this level, in level 2, in the city gate of Lachish, about 18 letters have been found, and they were found in 1935, and they were published all over the world as letters from the time of Jeremiah. And in this letter, we have 2 types of document. One of them is list of people. Why do you need list of people? This is for administration. People who had to serve in the army, people who pay taxation or whatever. So when you have list of people, it's an indication for administration. And the other type of letter telling us about letters with narrative, and they're telling us, for example, about a prophet. We don't know much about him, but a prophet is mentioned in one of the Lachish letters. In another letter, it's mentioned that the chief of the army went to Egypt. Why did the chief of the Judean army went to Egypt? They are fighting against the Babylonians, so he went to Egypt for ask for help or to coordinate the military activities. And another letter says that we are watching the fire signal of Lachish because we cannot see Azekah. And this is, you have the name Lachish found in Lachish, which is an amazing thing in itself. We don't have many sites where the ancient name of the site was found on an inscription inside the site. But what is fire signals? If you need to deliver messages, if you are in an emergent situation, you need to send a note like, we need help. Okay, so you light fire, and some people can see it in 5-10 kilometers, and then they transfer it further away. And this is a method of military communication before you have other more modern way of sending messages. So you can see that the Judean army was practiced fire signals in order to send messages from place to place. And this specific center said, we are looking at the fire signal of Lachish because we cannot see Azekah. Now in the book of Jeremiah, I described the last days of the kingdom of Judah, and he said that all the fortified city of Judah has been destroyed by the Babylonian, beside Azekah and Lachish. And in this letter, you cannot see Azekah anymore. So in 586 BC, the kingdom and its capital, Jerusalem and Lachish, were destroyed by the Babylonians. And here, since I do have a few more minutes before an hour, I would like to say that just 2 weeks ago, or maybe 10 days ago, a new article has been published in Proceeding of the National Academy of Science, which is a very prestigious publication. And in this research, the guy tests the magnetic direction in destruction levels. Now, the magnetic pole, we know where is the north, but it's not stable, it's moving. From time to time, it's moving a bit to the left or to the right, according to some movement inside the globe. We have the magma inside and a lot of iron, and it changes the magnetic pool a bit. So if you have a destruction level, that's what's happened. The bricks are burned to very high temperature again, and then they cool. And when they cool, the atoms are organized themselves according to the magnetic pool. Now, if Jerusalem and Lachish were destroyed in the same year, what's happened in both cities, when you check the magnetic direction in mud brick wall, you can find that they were burnt in the same year exactly, because they have exactly the same magnetic orientation. And the guy who made a PhD and published this result were looking for mud brick wall, burnt mud brick walls, and he measured the magnetic direction, and he could reconstruct 4 or 5 different military campaigns during the Iron Age. Now, what was amazing, that Jerusalem and Lachish has been destroyed by the Babylonian, but some sites, especially in the northern part of Israel, which were also destroyed in the end of the kingdom of Judah, has a bit different magnetic direction. So they were not destroyed by the Babylonian in 586 BC. And here the interpretation, and this is in the interpretation, that they were destroyed maybe 20, 30 years later by the Edomite, because the biblical text, the biblical author hate the Ammonite, the Moab, the Edomite, because they were involved with the destruction of the kingdom. And there even one scholar wrote there's even an article that says that not the Babylonian destroyed Jerusalem, but the Edomite. But this is, again, some imagination, as you can see, because the Bible said that the Babylonian destroyed it, and also the Babylonian said that they destroyed Jerusalem. So Jerusalem was not destroyed by the Edomite, but some sites in the Negev have been destroyed 20, 30 years later by the Edomite. And that's why the Edomites are so hated in the biblical text. Okay, thank you.
You have time for a question or two?
Sure. Yes.
Who regulates archaeological work?
We have the Israel Antiquity Authority. This is a governmental organization. They issue the excavation license. I cannot just go and excavate. I have to make a special requirement to excavate in this site or that site, and they will give the license not to me personally, but to the Institute of Archaeology. And the idea is that license giving to institutions, because archaeology can live and die, but if you die before you publish the result of your excavation, who is responsible to publish them? The institute. This is how things are working. Yes?
So if you fire a brick and define the magnetic orientation, and you move that brick to kiln to the wall, have to change that orientation?
That's why he's checking only standing walls. The guy, you cannot just take a brick, because here is look about, let's say that you have a wall that was burnt, all the bricks are there, and after 1 day, 2 days, the wall collapsed because of the destruction. The bricks that collapse are not in the original orientation anymore. Only the bottom of the wall, which still stands, this is where you have the magnetic, and that's what he's checking. It's checking a wall standing, not just a brick. Yes.
Where was the first sentence found?
Okay, it was found in Lachish. Unfortunately, it's from Lachish, yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't mention it.
It's from what?
Lachish, from the site of Lachish. It was not found in a good context. A good context, if it was found in a level from the Middle Bronze period, it would be excellent. It was found in a pit from the Babylonian destruction. This is where, so it's in what we call secondary deposition. When you have archaeological sites, there's a lot of activity. Sometimes people digging holes, sometimes you have animals dug, so material go up and down the archaeological levels. And this is one of the main problems in archaeology. This is what is called site formation process, how the site has been created. I didn't go into all these things. It's too complicated to start dealing with them. But the ivory comb was not found in its original context. And now you can ask me, so how do you know what is the dating?
Yeah.
The dating is according to the letters. The letters, the alphabet went evolution over time. And you can see that the letters that we have on the ivory are very, very early. This is the first phase of the alphabet. So to be on the safe side, by the way, as a debate about everything, there's also debate about when the alphabet started.
Yeah.
Scholars, the scholar who would like to, the scholar advocating earliest date would talk 19th century BC. And scholar who advocate a later time said 14th century BC. 500 years between the different opinions about the earlier and the later. Now, ivory can be dated by radiocarbon because it's an elephant tusk and you can date the ivory. And we were hoping that our comb will give an answer when the alphabet started because we have the earliest type of letters. We scrape a bit for, it's very small, it's only 3 grams. So you cannot just destroy it for radiocarbon dating. So we scrape a bit and we send it for dating and it's failed. Didn't have enough carbon in the sample. So we scrape again and we send a second sample and it failed again. 2 times we tried to date it and the laboratory said, we don't have enough carbon here. We cannot date it, which is pity because maybe we could solve this question about when the alphabet started.
Let me express my appreciation one more time to Dr. Garfinkel. I think you have all found it fascinating. I certainly found it fascinating as you hear as technology, additional understanding of history, comparisons with the biblical material. So thank you so much for a very enlightening and very helpful discussion about the very important site in Lachish. And hopefully some of our students will have an opportunity to get their fingers dirty with the dirt there at Lachish and be a part of contributing to the cutting edge understanding of history. So if you'll join me one last time in thanking Dr. Garfinkel.
Thank you.